Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jonathan Fisher. Cold calling. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, nobody seems to like it. And as difficult as it's become, is it even profitable today? Is cold calling dead? Well, Kevin Hopp says no, cold calling's not dead. You're just doing it wrong. Kevin is an outbound sales guru, a podcaster. He's a great trainer. And he's made it his mission to not only prove that cold calling still works, but he's helped dozens of businesses learn to profit from it big time. And he's going to do the same for us today, right here on the show. Kevin, fantastic to have you. Welcome to the Evolve Sales Leader.
Thank you for having me. Really, really happy to be here. Thank you for the intro there. I've done a few different things here in the past few years, but there is a common theme to everything that I've been doing, and that is cold calling.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly everyone's favorite activity to either engage in or receive, as I mentioned in that intro, which begs the first question: how did you come about making cold calling such a focus of expertise for yourself?
That's a great question. Cold calling is generally something that most sales reps know they should be doing and they avoid, and most sales leaders will preach from the high pulpit of saying like you should be doing that, but I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it because it's been about 20 years, 15 years since I've done it, but you should be doing it. Back in my day, we used to do right? Or it's like you said, it's the most disruptive form of outbound sales, but in a way, it's also the most effective. And I will continue to argue that because every piece of outbound sales is trying to accomplish the same thing, which is just trying to get a response from a prospect, have that conversation. The definition of call and response. The fastest way to do that is to talk to somebody. I just want to talk to them. I'm going to send them an email hoping they reply. I'm going to DM them on LinkedIn hoping they reply. I'm going to call them hoping they pick up so that I can have that conversation. Very quick to do that. So how did I get into it is the question here. I started my career. The first job I had out of high school or college, I went to UC Santa Barbara. Shout out. Go Gauchos. We made the tournament this year. Lost first round, but we made the tournament. First job out of college was being the first hire at a tech startup. First hire at a company. So very, very unique job out the gate. I did a lot of different things, but I identified that, hey, I don't care about sales. Like I don't have this like ego weird feeling about sales. And a lot of people told me in my life, like, hey, if you're not scared of sales, like you should go into sales. So when that startup fizzled out, I went and became a sales development rep. So that was my first real sales job at a tech startup here in San Diego, California, which is where I live, where I'm standing today. From there, I went from being a SDR to an AE to a senior AE to an AE at a different company. Well, everywhere I went, including my first job, I had the same problem, which is I wish I could be having more conversations with people in my market. I've never worked at like a big, well-funded company that has like, hey, Kevin, your job is to close deals, and I'm going to give you all these relationships, or I'm going to give you a pipeline full of people who are interested, and your job is just to talk to people and do the actual selling part. I thought that's what I was getting in a lot of these jobs. And you change jobs thinking the grass is greener. You're like, oh, cool. I'll be as an account executive here. I had to do a lot of outbound, but I'll change here and they have inbound. They never really do, man. So I always had to figure it out. I always had to say to myself, well, how do I build my pipeline? And I am sort of impatient, and I don't know if you can tell I'm kind of outgoing, kind of loud and gregarious. And my wife jokes I make friends in line at the supermarket, which I do. I've met some really cool people there. But that nature lends itself to being someone who'd be very good on the phone. So cold calling is just what I kept doing and doing and doing and doing. And eventually I decided to pick the path of, hey, I'm going to get really, really good at this one thing and try to become the guy for cold calling, as opposed to, doing cold calling as part of my sales job. So fast forward, now I'm a cold calling consultant. That's kind of what I do. I'm launching a new venture here real shortly that we'll talk about later. But yeah, so all about cold calling.
Well, with a background like that, you're in very good company. We have a lot of scrappy startup members, whether they're the founders or the business development team, are faithful listeners of the show. So it's a great background. And I'd love you to share, maybe first of all, the premise of the program today is that folks are doing it wrong. That may be one of the main reasons why they run from it. Obviously, there's some difficulties around doing cold calling, even in the best environment. But what are, would you say, the key mistakes being made by most companies in cold calling?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of people think that cold calling is dead, and that's obviously the purpose, the topic here. I love that term, cold calling is dead, because that's gonna, create teams that don't cold call, which is just gonna open up calls to be made for other people. Cold calling's not dead. You're just doing it wrong. Now, what I mean by that is cold calling in general and outbound sales in general has changed dramatically, even since I've been in my career, and I've only been in the professional world for barely even, not even 10 years, almost going on 10 years. So, but things have changed really dramatically since a lot of the, for lack of a better term, gray-haired sales leaders, since they were doing outbound sales, the numbers have changed dramatically. Now, what do I mean by that? There's a little thing called caller ID. Now, caller ID was the worst thing that ever happened to outbound sales. Back in the day, when the phone was ringing, you picked it up.
Yeah.
You pick up the phone, it's ringing. It's like, oh, shoot, well, back in the day, so back, before caller ID, you could, get a connect one every 3 dials, every time you're calling, every other time you're calling, very, very quickly. Nowadays, that can be up to, in some markets, 20 to 25 calls in a row you need to make before a live human will pick up the phone. Like, boom, cold calling is dead, right? Like, it's ineffective. It's clearly like, my reps don't have time to listen to the phone ring all day. Well, I'm here to challenge that and say that if you have the right people in place with the right training process on how to use the people and then technology, people, process, and technology, you can actually cold call very effectively at a small scale or a very large scale. And I have experience doing everything in between. So it's not dead, but it is getting way, way harder. Like, it's getting a lot harder.
Well, one of the most difficult risks for business leaders to grapple with are the unknowns. What are the unknown costs of trying to adopt a strategy that seems like it's not profitable? Maybe that's where you can be the most valuable to the listener today, is help us be a little bit more certain about what is a good framework. Why don't you start to lay out the groundwork of what actually is effective when cold calling?
Sure thing. Sure thing. So the most common concerns that I hear are, number one, we can't find the right contact information for the people we want to call. It's a real problem. Okay. I'll be real with you. It's a very real problem that most of the databases that sell lead data on a grand scale, meaning they're selling, hey, come buy the Zoom Info or whatever big database, and it's 15 million records, all in your ICP, all in your territory, right? There's a big problem with contact data. You need to be able to find a data source. And I have a Rolodex of about 15 to 20 different companies I recommend based on who you're looking at, what ICP you're going after, what type of buyer. Is it an executive? Is it a lower level person? So one problem is I can't find the contact data of who I'm going to call. The next one is I can't call them fast enough because I know that they don't pick up the phone very often. That 1 in 25 number. Now, that comes from a variety of things. One of the things that comes from is on your iPhone or your Android or whatever, that caller ID is now starting to say underneath it, if you make repeated short calls, it'll start saying spam likely. That's an algorithm, right? That's actually the government has put in place rules for telecommunication carriers that they have to follow. And the telecommunication carriers don't all agree on how to apply the rules, which makes this even more complicated because a lot of times, companies will say to me, hey, Kevin, I think all of our numbers are coming up as spam. How can we, get rid of that so that we can actually have a better connect rate? Because I'm just like everyone else. If it says telemarketer or spam likely, I don't pick it up, right? And I don't expect your prospects to either. Yeah. So that's a real challenge as well. But the fact that the carriers don't agree, like the same phone number, if you call a T-Mobile, if I'm calling a T-Mobile carrier, someone who has T-Mobile, it'll show up as spam likely. But if I call it for AT&T, a different number, it won't show up. My number will not show up as spam likely. And if I call Verizon, it will not, but it will for T-Mobile. So the two big problems are I can't find the contact data and I can't get through to the people, right? So this is a bit of the process. We have to find a contact data carrier that has enough direct and mobile lines no, there's no. If you're listening, if you're out there and saying, "Man, Kevin's about to give us, the answer here," the sad news is there is no one data provider that crushes it every single time across every industry. There's really not, right? The other side of that coin is there is not one dialing technology solution that fits every single mold, and every single customer should be using it. Every company should be using one dialer. But when it comes to dialing technology, there are basically 3 tiers to the market. Now, this is a piece of the pie that people do pay me to consult and explain, but I'm going to give it to your audience today for free. So
Nice.
This is how the auto dialer market kind of breaks down. I'm going to use my whiteboard real quick. Check this out. So you can basically call it 3 distinct tiers of the market. The top tier is going to be agent assisted. The middle is parallel, and the bottom is power. So these are the 3 levels of the auto dialing market. So when you see dialers out there dialing technology, you can say to yourself, okay, I'm curious. Kevin laid out this 3-tiered model. Where do they fit in here? Now, this is the dialer market, not the telephony market. That's another thing to consider, right? A lot of people say, I ask a company, I'm like, oh, are you guys using a dialer? They're like, yeah, we have Verizon for business. We've got Cox for business. We've got AirCall or a number of these other telephony providers where it's a company number and someone can call you and you can route the call internally. It's a phone system. I used to work for Vonage. That's one of them, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the auto dialer market. I want to call a lot of people in a short period of time. So these 3 distinct levels of the market, the cost goes up and down, right? But then the ease of use also goes up and down. So let's talk about what these 3 tiers are and what might be right for you. The top end of the market is agent assisted. What does that mean? It means that I'm going to take a list of prospects. So keep in mind, what we're trying to do here is take a list of prospects. This is our prospect list. Prospects. How do I call this list in the most efficient way possible, right? So part 1 was we needed to find the contact list, contact data. So we found the contact data. Cool. Now, how do I take action to that contact data? A variety of different ways, right? And this is where, reach out to me if you have a really specific question around this. But in general, the dialer market is going to go in these 3 tiers. Agent assisted is, I'm going to take this list, I'm going to plug it into a software platform. The software platform is sitting in front of a call center. That call center has actual humans that are going to call prospect number 1 and prospect number 2 and prospect number 3 on your behalf. And they only connect you when they say, hey, is this Jonathan? And Jonathan says, yeah, this is Jonathan. Boop. Live transfer to me. I'm sitting here in my home office knowing I'm calling this list, but I'm not sure exactly who I'm going to get connected to. So there's a bit of a process you have to follow for any of these technologies. And that's creating a monothematic list, meaning everyone on this list has a similar business challenge. And I'm only going to have conversations with everyone on this list about business challenges and the valuable solutions I might have to them. So we're not doing the kind of pre-research of, oh, I know everyone on here went to, Yale, or everyone on here attended a conference. I mean, maybe you can do that sort of thing if you have that kind of list, but I'm going to have a conversation with this person about a business challenge. Agent assisted does all the work for you. All you do is wait, and it beeps in your ear, and you say, hey, it's Kevin with the call, guys. How you doing today? And it's someone on your list, this specific list. So you know exactly what to say. You know the value that you provide to that person. Agent assisted does all that work for you of like calling and going through dial trees and everything. It's like magic. It's awesome. I love it. It's expensive. Okay. So in general, if you're selling expensive stuff, let's talk to me about that. I'll point you to some really good providers for that. Save you a ton of time. The middle tier of the market is going to be parallel.
I'd imagine the agent assisted might do a little bit better at defeating some of the technology barriers as well, some of the spam filter issues you might have. Is that true? I'm not being the non-expert. What would you say to that?
It does a little bit, but you can also think of this in terms of the amount of control you have, right? Like think of that, right? So agent assisted is like Tesla, like getting into a Tesla and putting it on autopilot. Like you're not like down here in Power, we're driving that, 1967 Mustang manual drive. Like it's
Right.
use the car metaphor. In parallel is my Ford F-150 that I get in and I turn it and it has a manual transmission. So there's levels of control you have across all of it. So there might be a little bit of a black box effect going on here where you're not sure what they did to get this person on the line. You just know that they called, they went through the dial tree. So the answer to your question is, yeah, it does better. But parallel does a great job. What is parallel? Parallel is the idea of calling more than one number at once. So if I'm calling all three of these numbers at once, parallel dialers use artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, OpenAI, that type of thing, to listen live. And what they're listening for is simply any human to pick up the phone. It's kind of genius because it solves for the number one problem. One of the number one problems, if we remember to what I was saying earlier, which is, man, 1 in 22 people pick up. I don't have time. Cold calling's dead, right?
Right.
This solves for that because you never hit a voicemail. Every time it hits a voicemail, hey, you reached Jonathan, thanks. It auto skips that and pulls up someone else that it's calling. So you have massive efficiency. I mean, you're going so much faster than if you were to call one by one. Now, what's one step lower than that? And also one step significantly cheaper than that? That would be power dialing. Power is the concept of calling one person, phone ring. Then if that goes to voicemail, it simply starts calling one more person, the next person on the list. And you're going one by one down your list. So the price and the effort involved and the time all go up and down very linearly in this market. Not all these are the same. So a big determining factor on how you use a dialer should be your existing technology stack today, right? One of the things that people get sold on, right, with these dialing companies is like, hey, I love this dial, I love the technology. I'm gonna use it, I'm bringing it into our company, and it's gonna be great. But it doesn't integrate with your existing sales technology stack, right? Like a very typical stack that 99% of my customers have, and I recommend basically everyone to have, is you got the CRM at the bottom, right? And you're gonna plug in data into the CRM. But on top of that, you're going to have a sales engagement platform, SEP. What is that? Outreach, SalesLoft, Zant, Outplay, Apollo, Stop Me. Somebody stop me. There's a million of these, right? This is controlling when you take actions to prospects. If you're a modern tech company and you're not using a sales engagement platform, I don't know what you're doing. Everybody should be using this.
Yeah.
Like when sales engagement platforms came out, like sales in general took a 100-year leap. This is incredible technology. And then on top of this, you put your dialer, right? And because they all integrate, the data flows up and down the stack too. And that's beautiful. This is beautiful.
That's a beautiful thing to get your tech stack all in line like that. So we've also got those elements of the right people and the right process. We've got some great listeners already chomping at the bit to have our Q&A session at the end. I'm going to take that as a reminder to the remainder of our audience. Hey, go ahead and hit us up with your additional questions in the chat. We're going to bank those for right now, and we'll circle back and cover those here at the bottom of this half hour. So talk to us about process, if you would, next, Kevin. If we've got our tech stack in order, we got to know how to use it. Give us some insights, would you?
For sure. So there are many different takes on this in terms of, okay, if I have something like this, I've worked and consulted with companies that have all three of these, and they're not actually integrated. They're not sitting on top of each other. They're their own little silos of data. And they say, oh yeah, so we cold call over here, and then when we get somebody or we connect with them one time, then we put them into outreach or SalesLoft, and then when we move, or they do the old-fashioned, the oldest trick in the book. Stop me if you heard this one. We call people who open and click on emails. That shows some form of intent. So a lot of sales leaders like to think that my strategy is to make sure people open emails, and then that warms up the cold call. No, it doesn't, right? I've built and run 2 outbound as a service agencies. So I've done campaigns for more than 50 different companies, which is very, very unique experience. And I can tell you scientifically, it does not matter, right? The most interesting, and I'll give your audience this, the most interesting finding, one of the studies that I did while I was running Sales Gig, which is an outbound as a service agency, and I had 12 reps running 40 campaigns at one time, right? We did an experiment where we would connect with someone on LinkedIn, a prospect, right? Take your prospect list, go connect with them on LinkedIn, and we had them into a calling cadence and called them within 24 hours. And we thought that was warming up the cold call, right? The odds of the cold call converting to something would obviously be higher because they connected with you on LinkedIn. Zero change. Zero change or effect. Zero change or effect. So,
wow, I'm very surprised by that. Yeah, I mean,
what's the
just intuitively, you would assume that would
yep?
have a positive impact. Huh.
Well, here's the takeaway, right? That I want everyone to like fight me on. If you want to fight me on it, I will talk about it all day. You can't warm up a cold call. It's a cold call. Like there is no warming up cold calls. It's a fallacy to make you feel better and to make it so you don't have to call as much and to make it so you can wait longer to call. Like reps and managers that get into this argument and say like, well, we should be warming up our cold calls before we call. I don't believe in cold calling. Dude, people don't care. They don't give a crap if you connected with them on LinkedIn or they opened an email or they went to your website one time. They only care about 2 things. And that's business problems that you might have valuable solutions to. Like they don't care about any of that other stuff. And I've ran so many campaigns trying to warm up these cold calls and trying to get better results from cold calling. The better you get at building lists of people that have similar business problems and then teach your reps to be little conversational ninjas on how to talk to somebody about a business problem, that is what makes cold calls convert. It's not email opening. It's not, oh, they all attended a webinar. It's all going to be great. Like, no, right? It's really, really hard to warm up cold calls. I mean, warming up cold calls is inbound.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. If you got a list of people who, hey, Kevin, I got this list of people who came to my website and requested a demo. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's warm.
That's warm.
But
That counts now.
other
Yeah,
than
that makes sense. That makes sense. So the other efforts would actually be down the funnel somewhat. Now that you lay it out, I mean, it really does make a lot of sense when you figure out just what an interruption the call is perceived to be. We've almost got maybe even hypersensitive about it. I think in today's day and age. But if you can do it right, and as you say, it's got a very firmly planted target of a business problem, and you got a solution for that. Double tap that target, then you can make that cold call very powerful. Talk to us about people. We're breezing through. We're gonna have you back, Kevin. I mean, right now I'm gonna invite you back. You have to. Sorry, but
yeah.
so what would you say about the people portion of a good process for cold calling?
So this is a really interesting one, right? And this is where I make my money, to be honest with you, right? This is a lot of what I've done a lot of in the past few years here, which is how can you build a cold calling program? And yeah, we can have all this, but who operates it, right? Just before we got on here, I was on LinkedIn and I saw two dialing platforms that both do this. They both do parallel dialing. They were arguing with each other publicly about who's better. And I'm like, this is silly because both of your tech works. Okay. You hit go and it calls more than one person at once. The tech is the same, basically. It's all about who is picking up that call. Right. And this is where, I have a podcast, right? And a live show that I actually do it live. And I'm one of the only, there's a very small handful of us out there in general that will actually take their techniques and go show you live. If you guys listen to podcasts, go anywhere you listen to podcasts and search Hop on Calls. You can hear live recordings of me cold calling people. I do it all the time. I've done over 50 episodes.
I love that, by the way, and it takes away the mystique and the fear factor because it's actually pretty fun. That's one thing that you'll see. I can just say to the listener on your behalf, watching you work shows that it's not something to be stressing about. It really isn't. It's kind of fun. It's funny when it works well. It's a lot of fun. Even if when it doesn't work, it's at least funny, and there's no reason to get uptight about it. especially when you have a well-designed process. Just for what it's worth, I've watched you work. I think it's good stuff. I love it. I love cold calling myself too, by the way, because it's a game, right? You don't know what you're going to get
Yeah,
exactly in terms of the outcome. All you know what you're going to get is out of yourself. You control that part, and then the outcomes are going to add up by just sheer volume of activity.
that's right.
Hopefully, your activity is well designed and well executed.
That's right. That's right. But to round out the point on people, you have to create a process that allows people to be themselves. Now, the number one problem that everyone watching right now, if you've made a cold call, the first, 300 calls you ever made, you had that. Are they going to pick up the phone? I don't know if they. Oh my god, right? And like the cat gets your tongue, right? And that's because of the way you're calling, right? One by one calling and personifying your your prospects and overthinking it and doing a ton of research and knowing everything about Jonathan before I call Jonathan actually makes it harder, right? It makes it way harder to have that cold conversation when, remember, that I've figured out empirically that it doesn't matter. None of that matters. All that matters is business challenges and valuable solutions. And that's what actually does work. So with your people, it's all about trying to create a process that allows them to be themselves. Now, good cold callers do have some very key traits, right? Good cold callers look a little bit like me, not physically, but they sound a little bit like me. Am I sitting down right now? Am I sitting here like this and talking like this? No, the tone of my voice is projecting. I'm going up and down. I'm making good points. I'm talking with my hands, right? People who are good on the phone have what's called the gift of the gab, right? And the best cold callers I've ever coached are people that are naturally talkative. Now, does that mean that if you're not a naturally talkative person and you don't have the gift of the gab and you're a little bit more reserved that you can't be a good cold caller? Absolutely not, right? The beauty of this is that it's also very process driven. So I've seen some very introverted people lean into the process and follow the script and just crush it, right? Now, they're not going to be the ones that get like the style points that I call it, where you can get a prospect on a cold call to laugh. That's always a gem, but it's definitely possible. And that's also a big part of what I do is train cold callers, train people to be badass cold callers. And I have an online course. If you go to my LinkedIn, you can find a link to my course and become a badass cold caller.
Well, thank you for that segue, because I was going to ask, how can the listener take the conversation further on cold calling in terms of your resources and what you're bringing to bear?
For sure, for sure. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, that's the number one way to connect with me, to learn from me, to follow me. I'm launching a new venture very shortly here. And Jonathan, if you have that link, you can put it in there. People can book time to talk to me if you have something going on when it comes to your business that you want to talk about. Let's try to keep that like business stuff only. If you have a personal question, one-off thing, whatever, you can always DM me on LinkedIn. Happy to go back and forth there with you. But I'm launching a business called The Call Guys. It's with another pretty big cold calling influencer guy named Ronen. Him and our business partners, we're launching here next week. Really, really excited about it. So stay tuned for that. You'll see it all over my LinkedIn and stuff. But I mainly work in cold calling and outbound sales consulting for B2B tech companies.
That's very exciting. Let me congratulate you on the launch. I wish you the best of success on that. We definitely have that link here on the screen, and it'll also be in the show notes for the listener. Well, it's time. Let's go to the Q&A session. We got a lot of activity over here. And now this is an interesting question. Let's see here. This is from Anthony Joseph. It depends on what your exact dialing technology is going to be, but it seems like, if I'm not mistaken, you are going to get in front of some gatekeepers occasionally, right?
Yep.
What is your advice on handling that challenge?
For sure. So agent assisted will handle gatekeepers for you. Beautiful, expensive,
Nice.
but beautiful, right? Parallel and power are just going to get you to the gatekeeper faster. If you call mostly gatekeepers, you don't need parallel, right? Because you don't need to call, your pickup rate's going to be really high. So you just need power dialing, right? But you shouldn't be calling mostly gatekeepers, but it could be out of your control, right? If you're calling a small business, if you're like selling to restaurants or you're selling to like repair shops or whatever, you don't need parallel dialing would be my argument. How you handle the gatekeeper, it's difficult. I've never liked calling gatekeepers. Let's be real, right? Because selling to gatekeepers is not selling.
Right.
There are two schools of thought that I always talk about when it comes to handling gatekeepers. One is the friendly approach. I'm going to become your friend. That means personifying them. The first time you connect is, hey, oh yeah, oh man, I was actually trying to reach John. Is John not available? No, he's not. He's in and out. He's always busy. They always say the same shit, right? Oh, okay. Can you leave him a note for me? Do you write notes? Do you guys have paper and pen anymore, or is everything digital? Oh no, I write notes. Awesome. Can you take a little note for me? Oh sure. Yeah, let him know that Kevin from da 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 called and he's gonna call back again tomorrow. Okay, I'll do that. I'll let him know. Awesome. I'm gonna send John an email asking about the paper on his desk. You see what I just did there? I just created a physical thing happening in their universe, in their office, that I can then follow up on and point to. And dude, there's nothing like physical objects. There's nothing like a piece of paper with your name on it. That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
That'll stick out. That's one thing. But then the way you end that call is you say, "What was your name?" Sarah. Sarah, awesome. My aunt's name was Sarah. Can you believe that? Oh yeah, I love you. Awesome. All right, Sarah. I'll talk to you later. Hope John can get back to me sooner or later. All right, I'll let him know. Bye. Right? What happens? 2 days go by, you don't hear the phone. Hey, is this Sarah? Yeah, it is. Who is this? Oh, it's Kevin. Remember I called? You wrote the note for John? Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, yeah, right. Now, all of a sudden, we're on this great level. Why? Because I'm friends with Sarah. I talked to Sarah. I know her name. Sarah's used to just taking orders and being bitched at, right? So it's really nice for Sarah to have someone pop into her ear that's super friendly tone. And I'm pointing back to a specific action that she committed to taking for me. Now, what will probably happen is she's going to say, I did leave that note for John, and he'll get back to you. He's a busy guy. What can I say? He's a busy guy. Oh, Sarah, totally get it. Now, I recommend you do one more iteration of this, meaning, all right, I'll talk to you later. Boom. Now, 2 days go by. You call Sarah back. Sarah, how you been? I'm all right. Yeah, what can I do for you today? Sarah, still trying to get in touch with John. I thought that maybe he would responded by now, and she's going to say the same thing because that's her job is to say the same thing. She's going to say, "Oh no, he's just so busy," da 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 da. To which you respond, Sarah, I'm a little different. I'm what my mother calls persistent. Would you mind being real with me for a minute here? Wait, let her answer. Yeah, of course. Is John ever going to respond? Or should I stop by the office? Should I send him cookies? How can I get just 10 minutes of John's attention? Be real with me. And Sarah's going to say, he's never taken a meeting with a sales rep. And you're going to say, great. Back to the stage right. Just kidding. She'll probably tell you exactly how to get a response from John. Right? Why? Because you've built a bit of rapport with you've been really friendly. Now, that was a long, drawn-out thing that I just explained there. But being super friendly and pointing to specific actions that gatekeepers take for you is how to get a gatekeeper to do things. Where I've had magic happen. Magic. Like John calling me back 30 minutes after that call saying, hey, yeah, Sarah, Sarah doesn't usually do this, but she really recommended I give you a call. What was it about? And I'm like, yeah. Awesome, right? The other way to deal with gatekeepers is to be very important. It's kind of the opposite tone of friendly. There's friendly and warm, then there's serious. Imagine you're John's lawyer. Do you think John's lawyer calls John and gets Sarah and says, hey, Sarah, how you doing today? Oh, my aunt's name is Sarah. Hell no.
No.
He's serious. This dude is on the clock for $900 an hour. And he wants to get to another client who's charging him $1,200 an hour. So he says, hey, Sarah, it's Kevin for John. That's it. That's all he says. And if Sarah doesn't know who Kevin is, she has a bit of a second where she goes, this sounds serious. Let me see if he's available. Right? And she doesn't want to have that silly moment of going to John saying, do we know Kevin? Sounds right? Impulse. Don't take the time to be all flowery and say, hey, it's Kevin with Acme Corporation. Will you change the world one step at a time? Can I speak with John? They don't do that. They come in and they're all business. right? And as an
Yeah.
SDR, as an early stage sales rep, it might be hard for you to understand that. If you have someone in your family that has some power and influence in a company, or they're very busy at what they do, try to pay attention to how they handle work calls like that from time to time, right? My uncle's the CFO of 4 Wheel Parts, for instance, right? And I've learned a lot from talking to him at family gatherings about how he handles sales reps and how he deals with things and how people deal with him. So always try to learn from everyone in your family. It'll help you get better at your game. But those are the 2 ways, right?
Yeah, get some inside baseball. I love it.
Yeah.
And playing with that tone, that's pretty powerful. Would you, after a quarter or 6 months, come back and maybe be the other version of yourself?
No, I'd pretty much abandon the channel, right? I'd find a different way to get in front of John. Like, definition of insanity. What's the definition of insanity? It's
Right.
doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. So I don't have a lot of patience for this. By the way, here's another nugget for Anthony and for everybody else out there. Real nugget. You ready for this? The sweet spot of amount of times you want to call one number in succession before giving up is 12. 12 times. You want to do that over at least 12 business days. Here's the, I'll give you the magic behind it, right? People take vacations. Holidays happen. Most reps are calling once, maybe twice. And that once they call might be Monday morning. And they're like, oh, John doesn't pick up his phone. Dude, call every day for 12 business days. The magic is vacations happen. In the business world, it's very rare for someone to take a vacation longer than 2 weeks, right? And if you call on the Monday when they start their 2-week vacation, you'll catch them when they come back. But if they happen to take a week and a half long vacation in the middle of that, you have time on the front that you're calling them. You're obviously not going to get them here, and you're not getting them. You might get them here. But the magic number that I have found is 12 times in a row. Now, when they don't pick up after 12 times in a row, you don't throw it away forever. As long as it's ringing through to a voicemail that says, hey, you've reached John, leave a message at the beep. If you're reaching that every time, you can be pretty confident it's John's number. Change your call from number, right? Call from a different number, and then put that number back in cycle 45 days later. Give it time. Kick it out there. Let it go to pasture. Don't keep going and going and going, but don't give up after 3, 4, 5 attempts. Most reps give up after way less than that.
Yeah.
So 12.
Air it out a little bit, come back. I love it. 12 over 12. You mentioned voicemail. Kevin Bilson asked the question, do you ever utilize leaving voicemails in your efforts? Is that fruitful at all?
Ooh, good question. I loathe voicemail. Now, why do I loathe voicemail? Because a lot of reps like to think that leaving voicemails is productive. Like, reps will, like, there's a weird, I've watched this happen because I train sales reps for a living, right? There's a weird sense of accomplishment and, well, I was doing good work today if you talk a lot, but you're not talking to somebody. So reps that leave a lot of voicemails feel productive and therefore feel a bit more upset about their cold calling results. Long story short, I don't like voicemails. Now, I do like voicemails in follow-ups, meaning I've spoken to you already. On cold calls, don't leave a voicemail. Because if I am getting cold called for the very first time, and I did this, can I show you on my iPhone? I can probably show you. I did this yesterday, okay? I did this yesterday. I got a cold call. You see what this says? It says white glove guys, right? That's a business. I know what they do. I see their ad on television every time I'm trying to watch the Padres. It's an AC heating and cooling business, right? But I figured out it was a business. They left me a voicemail saying, hey, Kevin, we're in your area. We're going to call you again tomorrow, see if we can't stop by, give you a call. I already have AC and heating in my house. I don't want to talk to another vendor. Do you know what I did? And look how easy this is on the iPhone. You know what I did? On this very bottom, it says unblock caller. I'm not going to unblock the caller. I blocked their number. I'm not going to let them call me again. And your prospects are going to do the exact same thing. If this number comes and it's 710 or 310 or whatever, they're like, send a voicemail. And the voicemail is, hey, Steve, Jim over here from Acme Corporation. We're helping sales leaders like you. Da, 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 da. I'd really love 30 minutes of your time. Call me back at da, 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 da. They are not going, oh man, I need to call Jim back. No, they're going, okay, cool. Block. Not wasting my time with you, sales rep.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the sales stuff and like who you are and what you do. It's about business problems. And you can't figure out the business problems until you have a conversation with them. So the reason I don't like voicemails, to wrap this up, and not to shit all over people that leave voicemails, I just have never seen it net better results than putting the emphasis on the conversation. The goal is not to leave them a voicemail to which they take action. The goal is to have a conversation with them. If you leave voicemails, the chance of them picking up your cold call next time you call drops by a lot, right? The white glove guys can never call my cell phone again, ever. I'm a homeowner in San Diego. That's a big L for them. They just like, that sucks, you know?
Yeah, that kind of sucks for them. Yeah.
But also, like, dude, this is the game. Your prospects are people too. They don't want to get sold to. They don't want to talk to a sales rep. You want to catch them on the off chance that they're open to a conversation and talk about business problems.
Yeah, that makes a world of sense. Abdul asked a fantastic question here too, kind of getting to the process piece. What school of thought are you in when it comes to stick to the dadgum script, or is there a lot of leeway on your team? How do you play?
Man, Abdul, fantastic question. Thank you for bringing this up. Something that I didn't, we were very like process and like tech focused over here, but I am team script all day, every day. Now, the metaphor that I use, and if you guys want, once again, I have an online course, go check it out if you're really curious, but the metaphor that's basically perfect for what a script should be is, it is a handrail, right? So this is down here, hello, and this is meeting set, boom. My handrail here is my script, and this is the conversation, boom. So let's talk about this for a quick second, right? So a cold call starts with, hello, you can consider that the door opening. Now, I have to go up and down and handle objections, do all the stuff in the call to get to meeting set, which is the purpose of cold calling. The purpose of cold calling is not to do discovery and sell someone something on the phone. It's to have a structured conversation with them at a time when you're not an interruption. They don't have all these other things going on. And what are you talking about? Business problems and valuable solutions, right? To get from point A to point B, you can run up those steps if you're really super coordinated, right? Like, you know, there was a time in my life when I never touched a handrail. And it was probably when I was like I'm a big and tall guy. Like I'm 6'4" in shoes is what I say. But like I got very athletic when I was about 16, 17 years old. Dude, I didn't touch any handrails. I was flying up steps everywhere I went, trying to jump 3, 4, 5 steps at a time. Now that I'm 31, I'm not skipping a bunch of steps anymore because I'm like, I'm going to blow out my hip. Like my ankle's going to break. But there was a period of time from 0 to 16 years that I was not good enough to go up steps that I didn't know without the handrail, you know? That's a bit like what being a cold caller is like. When you're young and you're new to it, you got to get through this conversation. You got to go from A to B. Use the script as a handrail. The better you get, the less you need it. But the beauty of the handrail is that it's linear. The handrail doesn't go, whoa. The handrail doesn't make it harder for you. The handrail is designed to make it so you have a topic-driven conversation that gets you from point A to point Z, right? And what's the difference? The question, the hypothetical question that I will then answer, the rhetorical question is, what's the difference between a sales conversation and a normal conversation? Well, a sales conversation has an actual structured goal. Normal conversations kind of do. You know, if you're one of my friends, every fucking conversation I have has a goal. I'm an opinionated guy, and my wife knows this about me at this point, that like when I'm asking her questions, she's like, what do you really want? I'm like, here's what I want. Why? Thank you for asking. Because I will phrase things in a certain way for her to, you know, I'll always be selling, right? But so the script is designed to get you to where you need to go. And if you have no script and you're 100% counting on all this knowledge that you have inside your head, which is going to make you worse at cold calling, which is oh, my product has all these integrations, and we launched this new feature set, and we have a rolling carousel of icons, and the color, and this and that, and the billing is so flexible and affordable, and like everyone loves to talk about them, and what their stuff does. The hidden secret is your prospects don't care. They care about what it does for them. What can it do for me? Now, the script helps you do that. So I am 100% pro script, but you build your script in a way that just gets you from point A to point B without you having to think twice.
Well, love it. Well, Kevin, what a value-packed 45 minutes it's been today. Thank you so much for adding value and giving these insights to the audience. I think we're all going to be taking and run with it. By the way, we've put those couple of resources in the show notes and in the notes section to our chat section, rather, for our live audience, both the book a meeting and also the online course. Please, listener, take full advantage. And Kevin, thanks for being a rock star here on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it, Jonathan. And I'll come back on anytime. Let me know if your audience wants to talk cold calling. I'm a nerd about cold calling, so I'm there.
All right. I resemble that. Will do. We'll see you soon. And to our live audience, thank you so much for being here, and all of our many thousands of listeners. Without you, the show would not be possible. We also want to thank our fantastic sponsor. We are proudly powered by Overpass. Overpass is the world's leading platform for getting pre-vetted, high-quality phone-based sales development talent, bar none. And it's simple and easy and very inexpensive to use. Check them out at overpass.com. Open a free account there and check them out. And if you love the guests that we're having and the quality insights we're providing here on the Evolve Sales Leader, go check out the podcast. You can check out every single guest we've had over the years so far on the Evolve Sales Leader, wherever you like to get your podcast. Well, for the team here, Jonathan Fisher signing off. You guys enjoy your weekend. We'll see y'all next time.